Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode on Trends. My name is Nakali Eskunakali, and of course, I'm joined in the studio today by the spectacular PJ, ladies and gentlemen, and also,
Hello. Thank you for joining us
yeah,
today.
yeah. And then to my left, I have the amazing Ife with us in the building.
Hi.
And today, it's first of all, let me permit me to say Happy Workers' Day
Happy
to my
Workers'
esteemed
Day.
colleagues.
Happy Workers'
I
Day.
Happy
celebrate you.
Workers' Day.
Thank you for all that you
We're
do.
here, we're working, and
We are here working,
we
ensuring we're
receive the
bringing
best workers of the
yes
year.
premium content even while you are chilling on Workers' Day. No
Enjoying
problem, we
your
forgive
break.
you. So today's conversation is one that is long overdue, and it's one that we cannot have enough of. Right? It's a delicate conversation, so we'll try as much as possible to not hold back, but yet also be as objective and as balanced in our
Yeah,
perspectives. Today
as
we are
much as possible.
spotlighting the, let me use the word phenomenon of single motherhood, right? And everything in between, the trials, the issues, the stigma, the somewhat pandemic that it's becoming, and everything in between. And we're trying to spotlight this very crucial conversation and bring informed perspective to it. Before I even begin to ask thoughts and opinions. Let me just, for someone thinking, okay,
Why are we
why are
talking
we talking
about this?
exactly? Why do we have to touch on this and all that? Well, for so many reasons. We're just checking some of the statistics, and it's become alarming in the last decade. The rate of single motherhood recorded. I think I even have a stat here that I'll just like to read quickly as we go on, and then I'll also do a definition of what a single mother is. But look at what it says. Approximately 22% of women aged 20 to 49 years in Africa are unmarried mothers. That's what we call single mothers, right? So we have a 22% ratio, which is, ever growing on a daily
Yeah,
basis, right? That are single mothers within the age of 20 to 49. Now, with that statistic rising on a daily basis, it is important that we bring perspective to it. It has become a notable phenomenon in our society, and it's something that we must bring perspective, scriptural perspective, biblical perspective, and even a societal contemporary perspective to it to understand this. So somebody is asking, what's a single mother? I'll just read what I wrote here very quickly. A single mother basically is a mother that is
primarily mother.
yes, is a woman who raised a child or her children alone without the help of or presence of a partner or a spouse. Now, the absence of the spouse can be due to a number of factors, right? That
Yeah.
ranges from maybe divorce or death, maybe as a widower or a widow, no, a widow rather,
A
now
widow, yeah.
because we're talking single mothers, right? Maybe death, divorce, or just decision, because we have people that just decide that I don't want to get married. I'm just gonna have artificial the IVF and all that, and then have my
Arrange for
children.
that to happen.
Exactly. So there are so many talking points.
Yeah.
This is a wide subject, and like I said, we understand the sensitivity of it. So we'll try as much as possible to keep our perspectives informed and balanced. So PJ, first I'd like to ask you, when you hear the term single motherhood, I think it just became more popularized in this generation because growing up, it didn't sound like a thing to me,
Yeah,
right?
it
But
has
but
almost become a norm, or
yes,
Yeah.
you know,
yes. In fact, and truth be told, there are many negatives to the fact that we didn't know about it because a lot of people had been experiencing it. Some people were stigmatized, some people were excommunicated because they found themselves in those situations. And like we said, there might be so many reasons, right? So,
yeah.
PJ, what's your thought on this whole idea of single motherhood?
So many thoughts to share, right? Particularly because we have seen transitions across different
Yes,
generations
yes,
about family life, about perspectives, paradigms that have sort of like embraced certain ideologies
yes,
and have debunked some. Over the years, we did not consider this to actually be a thing that would now be talked about as a
yeah,
setting that some people voluntarily
yeah,
choose.
yeah,
You know, you defined it and you
yes,
mentioned that some people actually plan
yes,
to be single
yes,
mothers, do not want to ever have, you know, a man in their life as a father figure for their child, and then they just go around that plan. And then there's the occurrence where it just so happens that, oh, a marriage didn't work, and so some people are just left to raise a child or their children
yeah,
by themselves. The entire concept of it first of all, let's state it that it's an anomaly from how the family system should be. Whether it is by choice or by situation or by circumstance that it happens, there's just something faulted, right, about it. Of course, sometimes it's not the fault of the woman, it's not her doing that it happens, but
Life
let's
just happened.
establish that, that structure is
It's not the original
it's not
intent.
the original intent, right? It's not the original intent. Are there women who have been able to thrive against all odds, even being single mothers? Yes. Are there women who this really battered them and also had, we're going to talk about effects, right, on the
Yes.
children as well, who could not manage it well? Yes. Are there women who designed this to happen and have even glamorized it,
Yes.
and have made
Yes.
it a thing where
Yes.
other women now admire and want to also emulate?
True.
Yes, but the thing is that was not the original intent of God.
I like how that you're clear to delineate between what was, one time they were asking Jesus about what he thought about divorce, and he had to reference what was. He said in the beginning it was not so, right? So Moses permitted you guys. He now brought it to the fact that, okay, by virtue of happenings now, they had to make room for this thing, but from the original intent, this was not
Was
the
not the
intent.
plan.
And like you rightly said, God's intention is a father and a mother, a man and a woman raise a child. That's why it's parenting, and there is that which each part jointly supplies to make the child wholesome.
There's a system that the
Yeah,
two people must contribute.
exactly. So if let me ask you, we have seen PJ mentioned something that I believe is very, very important. The fact that certain people have glamorized single motherhood, made it a thing. Now there is the situational. There's a fact that a person can find themselves in a situation as a single mother, like we said, death of spouse, maybe divorce, maybe in the case of violence. And I think we want us to talk about that. When is it too far? When is, because there's some stigma around why people leave marriages, divorce, and all that. So in those kind of situation, what would you say is too far when it comes to like when people try to glamorize this idea
Okay, they
of
got into it by
single?
situation,
Yes.
and
Okay, you got into it by situation. All right. Should you now make it a thing in the sense that this is now, somehow people try to justify what they do by
Yeah.
making it look like, okay, this is this. When is it now a problem?
Okay. Before I answer that, I also want to point out that another reason for single motherhood is abuse. Maybe a person was raped and it ended up
Yes,
resulted in
yes.
her. Oh,
resulted
true,
in
true,
pregnancy.
true.
So that's another reason. Now, to answer the question, when it becomes extreme is when you are, like you said, that's not the intention of God.
Yes.
Even in society, like there are things that, this is the example. If you have a boy child, there are
Yes.
some conversations you can't have with your child as a mother. It has to come from the father. So even in terms of society, there will always be this gap. It's two people that should come together to raise these children. But now something has happened and there's a gap. The father is not there. And if you have been, like, you were successful in bringing up those children, you shouldn't make it like a pattern for others. Like, let them know that it's not that you were okay. It's not the intention of your heart to go in this route. It's just the situation, like where you found yourself, and you had to make do with it. But one thing we do in a bid to protect ourselves, like we don't want people to see our pain, then we'll now glamorize it. It's like putting a pretty band-aid on a wound.
Yeah.
There's still a wound on that.
Yeah.
And little children, when we were growing up, and you see this even in cartoons, you see kitty cat. Is that kitty cat or something?
Yeah.
Like you see
Or
a
love
band-aid.
emoji,
Exactly.
make it look so
like
nice.
You go to your
and
parents,
the wound is still there.
you go to your parent, I want this band-aid, even if there's nothing
Nothing
wrong
there.
with you.
Yeah.
So that's the thing.
This
that
you
is
said just remember a very funny story. I had a classmate that broke her arm. Then she had a cast on.
So people copy
Bro,
that.
I wanted the cast. I was saying,
People were
what?
signing on his ass,
Yes,
Abi.
it was so pretty because they had all those glitters and everything. It was glamorized, right? And I wanted to have a cast. Like, what are the requirements
Did
to have a
break-
cast?
did you fall
But
down?
when I found, I had to break my arm, bro. I was like, so like you said, sorry for cutting you. You can finish
Okay,
this.
so that's the thing. You just see the beauty on the outside. You don't see the pain
Pain.
the
Pain on
person
the
is
inside.
feeling.
True.
And the person too, so it's now their responsibility to make you understand that this might look beautiful. I might have come out as like being successful with this situation that I found
Yeah.
myself,
Yeah.
but it wasn't easy. And if I had my choice, I wouldn't have gone this
Gone
route.
this route,
So
yeah.
it will help others to know that this is not a pretty. There are people that have gone the route, and when they now find that themselves in that situation, they are like, "Ah, I didn't know it was going to be this bad.
Yeah.
Let me try and go back to where I'm
Yeah.
coming from." So essentially, if you find yourself in that situation, if God is helping you, let people know that this is not the way. Don't just look at the glamour. There is pain underneath. There are nights of fear of how will these children turn
Be
out.
raised,
Like,
yes.
for example, my mom she's a single mother because my dad died when I was like a year plus.
Oh.
So she had to raise us alone for decades. So it's not now looking at her now, looking at because all I'm the last born, so she has grown up children. You might look at her, you might look at her children and think, this is someone that did it, she did
well.
it alone. But
Yes.
there are pains, there are nights that she'll have to cry, she'll have to not eat. There are times we have to sleep in a room where we couldn't pay, and they removed the windows, they removed the door throughout. We had to stay there because we had nowhere else to go. So there's pain beneath all those
of those
glamour. It
things.
didn't just happen. So that's it.
I think you have touched on a very important thing that I want to also give a commentary on. The fact that many times we internalize pain, then cover it up with a lot of glamour, which might have its own positives because everybody's at least it covers up so the children are good and
Probably
fine.
looking for
Yeah.
But
outlets too.
yes, it's a lot of pain accumulating on the inside. Now, I think that the controversy around this single mother thing, I feel like what balances it out is dependent on what takes you there or what brings you to that situation.
Yeah, how did
For
you get
example,
there?
how did you get there, right? For people that find themselves as single mothers because maybe they lost their spouse, right? They lost their partner. You can't fault them. If they had any power over it, that would not have happened, right? For
Life
people
happened at
that
that
maybe
point.
were involved in a toxic marriage and maybe it was getting to the point of abuse, so just as an aside, I would just like to also state that one time we had the show where we spoke about the gospel artist that died allegedly and was
At that
traced
time
back
was
to the
alleged,
yes.
now.
Her husband has been sentenced to death by hanging, right? That is Osinachi Nwachukwu. The husband had been sentenced to death by hanging for culpable homicide, right? And you see, these are certain
That case is sad.
realities that people face.
So sad.
Now, the there's a lot to talk about on this topic because it's a whole lot. It's a large because many people are in marriages that are toxic. Their lives are under threat. It might not be by beatings or by abuse, physical or verbal or whatever abuse. It might just be that the husband is a philanderer. He goes about sleeping around and goes contract a deadly virus and passes it on to the wife. The woman is at risk. So you see, whilst there is the traditional church approach towards certain things that are phenomenons in our generation, we must also be humane. That's the word. Humane
Yes,
enough
humane.
to understand. Jesus was very empathic when he dealt with people. He understood their situations. Now, for example, a woman that got raped maybe at age 18 and got pregnant as a result of that now keeps the baby, has to keep the baby because that's the right thing to do, right? Keeps the baby, now becomes a single mother. Now, the same categorization, it won't be fair to categorize the same person in this category of someone who glamorizes single motherhood by virtue of choice and says, you know what, I don't want to do my life with a man and all that. And usually, a lot of these things, they lead back to trauma. For a woman to say that I want to do my life without a man,
it's a trauma response. It's
It's
covering
yes,
something.
yes. If you investigate the case, this can get a lot of divergent views. But the truth is, this is the truth. If you check it in depthly, you realize that most of them have had traumatic experiences. Maybe the male figure in their life did not do what they ought to do, or
And
maybe
then
they
that
were
just cut them for life.
or were the source of their greatest pains. So as a result, they have blocked out that gender for life. and then they just want to do life
The all
without.
men has come movement.
You get those kind of things. So someone that's okay, take for example someone, let me create a hypothetical
A scenario,
situation right
okay.
now. So this is a young girl, was maybe 17, 18, fell in love in secondary school, so those stupid love, those love that we used to do there. And but for some reasons was involved in premarital sex and got pregnant.
Yeah.
And has to keep the baby because that's the right thing to do, right? And now it is clear that after a few years they have evolved and this is not the person I want to do life with. Now this person is plunged into being a single mother. What would you have to say about that kind of situation?
Okay, it's good that you're painting this scenario because I know a number of people that this is their case.
Yes.
And this is how they just ended
Yes.
up becoming single mothers. Now, life happened to a teenager and she got pregnant. And as she started to move on in life, she found out that this was a bad choice, it was wrong. And then sometimes even family advising that, oh, you've already had a child for this person, just you guys should just make it official. And it becomes the biggest mistake of both their lives, because that was never even a situation that they wanted to be in the first place. The resentment starts to grow and all that. Those kind of situations, what eventually happens is it takes God not to now make it a pattern. That's what I've discovered, one. Then two, the situation of her being left in that, in that whole space of being a single mother now has to be a decision where she chooses to go ahead taking responsibility for her situation, owning up to it, and then moving ahead in life. See, there's no point you get to that you just have to give up when you are still alive. When life is there, you can still rewrite your narrative. You can still right your wrongs. So she doesn't have to now take it and now say, this is the way to live. Life brought you there. You must now choose and say, I want to go ahead and make the right decisions going forward. And that would be influenced by you not now choosing to carry it as a label proudly and fly it as a flag and now endorse it for other women to live by, right? It will reflect in your decision.
But how do they now balance this you said with not seeming like they are ashamed of the seed of that? So for example, usually because we say don't glamorize it. That's what we are. That's what we're clamoring, right? Where is the balance? Because if don't glamorize it, might now look like hide as a secret. Some people might interpret it as I've seen mothers who claim that their children are their sisters, or are their mother's children. They don't, so that they can do life as a normal young lady, and then some of them even get married. The man thinking that that's
you know what I found out this whole need for women to hide that they have children is because society tells you no man will want to marry you. Because society has given us a form of definition that until you're married, you're not a person. It doesn't end and it doesn't start and end in marriage. That's where I was going to, because I feel if a woman removes the whole pressure to want to be defined by how well a marriage is doing, or if she's in a man's house or she's under a man's roof, so many things would be easier. She goes ahead to do well for herself, cares for her child, does not have to hide her child, but is living her life fine. A man that will love her and accept her child will find her.
So do you think a single mother can find love again?
Yes, a single mother can find love again. It might be hard, particularly in this part of the world. It might be hard, honestly. I've seen many women who do not even want to ever associate with their children because they don't want to reduce their chances. I mean, you're not even with a child, it's already hard. They already tell you that men are scarce. You don't have to now talk about when you have a man and the man start considering that how will I take on this responsibility? I might not see this child as my own. It might be hard. Many times it is hard. But yes, single women can find love again. Single women can find love again.
What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, sure. Single women can find love again. Like you said, it might be hard, but the most important thing is to define your priority. Like she said, we shouldn't make marriage the end or be all for a woman. So if you are hoping to love, but you are not centering all your life on it, like you are achieving things. We have single women that eventually got married, but before then they were successful in their own
Their
what they are
field.
doing. So if you are successful in what you are doing, the right man will come, the right man that sees the way you portray yourself, and you are not hiding the fact that you have a child, and you are not making it seem as if like you said, glamorizing it, that I don't need a man.
Yeah.
Of course you can raise a child, but there's the place that the man has to fill. So
true.
you are not belittling the space of the man, but at the same time you are trying your best to. And also, talking about single motherhood, it doesn't end at the father. If you found yourself in a situation where, not those that choose it,
Yes.
those that they couldn't
Circumstances happened.
put them there, you can there. If you have siblings
Yeah.
that are male, they
Yeah.
can be the male figure, they can be the father figure. Then we have the church setting, to the
Yes.
right church. If you are
Yes.
going to the right church, not pastors that are predators.
Yes,
But
yes.
the right church, you can have people that your son or your children can look up to
Can look
if
up
they
to,
have
true.
anything. So yeah, single women can find love again. It's just that, don't be, how do I put it, don't I'm
Don't
looking for
glamorize
the
it.
word. Yeah, not even like, don't be
What are you trying to describe?
I know that
like you
feeling.
should not carry it on your head. Don't be desperate.
Oh,
That's the
yeah.
one. So don't, if you are
Desperation.
desperate, it will bring the wrong people.
True,
Because
true.
that's when they will now start giving you their own terms that I
Terms,
don't want. But you are coming to me, I'm okay. What do you bring? It's women that they're asking, what do you bring to the table? You can ask the men also, like, what do you bring to my table?
They are the
This-
table.
I feel attacked, but yeah. Okay. So I wanted to say something. Right, I explained the scenario earlier on about a lady that had, was got pregnant because when she was a child, she fell in love and all that. So let me say this: that you get pregnant for a person does not mean you have to marry the person. If you made a mistake and you got pregnant for someone, you don't have,
Yeah.
there's that cultural bias that we have, especially in this part of the world,
Just marry,
that's just marry and cover your
child.
shame. Let it just be everything cover. That has birthed a lot of pain. Like you said, PG, usually it is resentment because everybody imagines what I
Your
beg your
life would
pardon,
have been like
without
that
this thing,
person.
without this event that happened, and invariably they project on the children.
Yeah.
So the child, the fruit of that union, becomes a reminder of their mistakes.
Yeah.
So let me also say this to single mothers, in case you're a single mother watching out there. We feel your pain and we are praying for you, right? We understand what you're going through, and like PJ and Ife said, you can find love again. Don't just be desperate. Trust God, do your thing, build a career, build a life for yourself, and you'll find love. But let me say this, right? Whenever you are in a situation that is toxic, if you find yourself in a situation that is toxic, maybe
Life-threatening.
life, something that has gotten to the point that your mental health is at stake, your it's who is alive. Yes, now it's who is alive that can.
It's who is
that
alive that will
alive,
still continue
so that
to
we will not be seeking for
thrive.
justice
Yeah.
for someone. We have a comment here that really touched me when I saw it. This is from Olushola Folarin. It says, I may have ended up like late Osinachi. I thank God for the guts to go countercultural. PJ
Thank
just
God,
narrated
thank
my
God.
scenario. Now, while we are saying all of this, of course, we are not trying to push the narrative that, everybody should just become. We are not trying to endorse single motherhood, because like we said from the onset, that was not God's original intention. God intended it that a good man and a good woman, let me put it that way, right, will come together and raise goodly seeds, right? But the devil has infiltrated the family system, and we have a lot of anomalies. And when anomalies happen like that, there is need that with the wisdom of God we find a way to mitigate these things, and that's what we are sharing. So in case you're a single mother watching this, there is still hope for you. Don't lose faith. I want us to quickly, before we wrap up, quickly touch on some of the statistically proven
Very
what do you call it?
important.
Yes, effect that not just even single motherhood, the absence. So the way God created the family system, right? That parenting ought to be done by a male and a female. That's the father figure and the mother figure. There is that which each of them jointly supplies that makes the child wholesome, right? And the absence of either of them. Now we're talking about single mothers, but it's not just even single mothers. When these fundamental structures are not available, thank God, like Ife rightly said, there are other substructures that God has put in place, like family,
can always
right?
adopt,
Thank
yeah.
God for the church, that you can have strong. For some people, until they met maybe their pastors or their spiritual family, they didn't have a sense of family per se, but God brought them under people that can, although not related by blood,
Yeah,
but
that
related
could
by
be
the
able
blood
to
of
fill
Jesus,
that
right?
gap.
And now they have filled the void, right? So PJ, you want to touch a bit about some of the effects,
Yeah.
please?
So I'm glad we're actually getting to this point,
Yes.
because I was going to say that at the end of the day, many times it's the children who actually are
At
the receiving end
true.
Yeah.
of, we've not even said single fatherhood. That's also a thing.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
going to say,
Yes, sir.
find a time to actually do a show
We'll talk
about
about
single
that.
fathers
Yes.
too, because that's the thing. That's some people's reality. Actually, the effect is enormous. There are many times where children are left wondering. So psychologically, there's this analysis that at the early age, when they cannot fully process it, they feel it's their fault. They might not understand the
Yes.
situation that brought them there.
Yeah.
Children just feel, oh, and then some cases where the mom doesn't maybe want to associate with the child, they feel, oh, I'm hated.
Yes.
And then my mother wants to have nothing to do with me. So it affects children on the long run. It leads to trauma and so many other effects. I have a few stats here that I would like to just share with us and bring light to. So there are many situations where we'll see that a child goes on in life with a faulted ideology about family. And then that also leads into a circle where, that's why I mentioned something about pattern, because sometimes I've noticed it that a child who was raised by a single mother, whether you like it or not, has a higher tendency to misbehave and to be a problem in society. There was a situation that happened, and I recall a family was saying that whenever their dad is around, they have little children, they decided to have their children very fast, like back to back. That whenever the father is around, the kind of decorum that exists in the home. And when you take that, like you mentioned, the part that the father and mother bring, when you take that away, there's already something that will be missing, and it will become very, very obvious. It says here that the prevalence of single motherhood varies across different subregions and all of that. However, in certain places where we find prevalent broken homes or a situation of mothers being the ones raising children, there are increased rates of crime. There's no man to bring order. And it takes God in many cases for those children to actually grow up and be right, be in their right senses. There's no other. Broken homes, and if it's not a case of a broken home and it so happens that way, that discipline, there's always that lapse.
I think it's important that at this point we mention that there are always exceptions, right? Because saying these things, and somebody say, but I know
It's
this
not
person,
always that way.
and you
There are
realize the
exceptions.
argument. There are always exceptions, but we're speaking as a general, as it pertains to statistics. Now, generally speaking, this is the pattern, like PJ rightly said. What the father brings in his own expression of love is order. Is spine, is that structure, is that backbone, right? Whereas what the mother brings in her expression of love is care, is nurture. So when a child only receives care and nurture and fails to have that structure that makes him firm, especially for a male figure, you will notice that when the child is overly nurtured, he becomes spoiled. Usually that's so if you see a mommy's boy, you just know that this person is entitled, this person does not have regard for decorum, this person does not have regard for order. This person just feels like he can do anything because he has done many things and has gone scot-free without consequence. The mom has there's a limit. Whereas the dad, we all know these things in our society, in our house now. My dad, let me say this, my dad never ever beat any of us. Since I was born, my dad never beat any of us. But if that man shout at you, you wish that he used 7 mouth kuboku on your ear.
You receive sense.
I'm telling you. So I dread his raking. If he powerful. If he changes for you like this, you would wish he used whip on your ears. But I'm saying that in itself was a check. Everybody needs a system to check them.
Yeah.
Even if government has checks and balances, humans have checks and balances. And as a child, the Bible says that foolishness lurks in the heart of a child, and the rod of correction would take
Bring
it out,
it.
Takes
right?
it out.
So it means that there is that which. So now flip it over. If it's just the father in the life, now like I said, there are exceptions,
There are
and there are
exceptions.
people that knowing fully that okay, this is the circumstance I found myself, have done the work in empowering themselves in the right knowledge, knowing how to fill in the void. There are fathers that okay, I'm a widower, and my children, I know that this girl is a young girl, she's going to get into menstruation very soon, and all of the hormonal changes that begin to happen. Someone needs to have a conversation with her,
Yeah.
and the person begins to read up on how to do that. Now that's extra intentionality.
And
God
equipping
intended,
yourself.
yes, God intended that two people will split that responsibility, but now
It's what
providence has made
happens.
it so that one person has to take it. So there are always exceptions. So calm
Let's
down.
calm down.
I say what we're saying, there are always exceptions, right? But that does not mean that the exceptions will stand as a general template, right? We are speaking based off of statistics. So we're already far behind our time. But as a matter of final thoughts, what you think, we still have a lot to say. I think we have to
Yeah.
revisit this
We have to
conversation
revisit
so that we
conversation.
can
Probably just
go.
maybe have our
Yes.
our audience calling or something. And
Yes,
share
yes,
their
and
thoughts.
share their thoughts, share their stories. And I have one comment I'd like to read before I get your your thoughts, PJ.
Okay.
It is well with us. This is from Ololade Ogundimo. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. It says, "It is well with us all, especially those of us that violence brought us here. May God be more than sufficient for us." The Vicoya Studio says, "The checks and balances by fathers is priceless. Truly, truly." Thank you so much, guys, for sending your comments. You can keep sending them in before we wrap up. We'd love to read and hear your thoughts on this. And we are sending out love and lights and warm hugs to every single mother out there. Jesus loves you, and I think that it's imperative that we make it so. It doesn't
Understand
matter
that.
what society says. Jesus loves you. He doesn't like the fact that the family says infiltrated, but it doesn't change the fact that he loves you. He loves you genuinely, and he wants the best for you. So PJ, final thoughts.
Okay, so something I would like to emphasize is to
Yes.
please heal. No matter how you got that situation happened, that
Yes.
you are a single mom, please heal from whatever it is, right? It might have been the pain of having to walk out of a marriage, it might have been the death of a partner, it might have been any situation, unfortunate situation that might have come your way. Please heal, and do not, like he first said, I'm going to say it in our words, use a pretty bandage to cover a wound. Just seek healing, be whole, and just trust God to help. I know it's many times tough. I've heard people recount their experiences as single mothers. God will always show up, right? Trust Him with your life and the destinies of your children. Just know that He has got you. God has got you. But seek healing.
Yes. Ife?
Okay, my final thought is be kind to your children, love your children. They are not the cause of what happened. They found themselves in the situation
Yes.
as much as
As
you.
you did.
So don't, especially in case of abuse, don't blame, because we've seen cases where they now start blaming the child
Yes.
as if it's the child's fault. So whatever pain you are going through, like what PJ said, heal so that you will not bleed on your children and you will not bleed on others. And the best way to do that is to allow Jesus. He feels what you are feeling more than anybody. Like anybody can. He feels what you are feeling, and you can talk to him without packaging. You can break down in his presence, and he will heal you. So allow God to heal you. Be kind to your children. Don't let them feel as if this thing is their fault, and as much as you can, protect them from the outside effect, because there will be people that will be blaming them that you are a child of this, your father is not at home, your mother is useless, even if that is not the truth.
That's not the case.
So
yes.
as much as you can, let them feel the love, so that whatever harshness they will be receiving outside will not come in, because there's a blanket of love all around them.
Thank you so much, Ife. Finally, I'll just say that if you're a single mother watching this out there and you're still trusting God to find love, yes, you can still find love. All hope is not gone. Jesus loves you. In fact, you have found that love already, right? So you can find love again. You can live life again. You can live life to the fullest. Whatever is the case that you have found yourself in this situation, it does not have to be the end of your life. Better is the end of a thing than the beginning thereof. And we are praying with you, and we are trusting God that it can get better. But we also want to reinstate the fact that in the beginning, God's intention was not that we would have single parents. He intended that people will live long enough to raise their children together. And I'm praying for as many married and that are trusting God. You will not have to do life in that manner in the name of Jesus. God will help you, and God will grant you the grace. We love you guys. It's been an emotional one for us because
Thank you for joining.
there's been quite a lot of talking points and a lot of things that would also left unsaid because of the brevity of time, right? But we trust that we'll get to touch on this some other time. Until we come your way again next time, I remain Nakali, and I had the awesome privilege to have PJ and Ife in the studio with me.
Thank you for joining.
If you enjoyed the comment, please, if you enjoyed the conversation, please leave a comment, share, like across all social media platforms, and have people come watching and drop their comments. We'd love to know your thoughts on this. God bless you. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.